Back in 2006, Cynthia and Jorge were traveling near the intersection of Dana Avenue and Ruben Torres Boulevard when a drunk driver ran a red light and crashed into their car. The impact forced them into the murky waters of this ditch. Today, these three crosses stand as a reminder of that fateful day. The second access bridge would measure between 7 and 8 miles, making it 3 times longer than the Queen Isabella Causeway. But that also means that it would cost almost 3 times as much just to build it. Even in the shade, this well-known rest stop for people crossing illegally through La Jolla has already reached 105 degrees during the noon hour. But when you factor in the humidity and the air temperature, it'll feel more like 115 degrees. Astrid, Luis Orlando, oficiales a lo largo de la costa del sur de Texas se preparan para la llegada de Alex. They talked about a variety of issues, but taking center stage is the violence going on south of the border in Mexico and whether that violence has spilled over into the valley. Police say the 13-year-old crawled into the front seat of the car and immediately took off. But in the back of the car was a 4-year-old child restrained to his car seat. For many of the students here at Rivera High School, this is the first day back without a familiar face in the crowd. 19-year-old Juvenal Torres was killed Saturday in Matamoros, Mexico. 7 months since Joaquin Luna's death, his mother, Santa Mendoza, cherishes what could have been the key to his future, a high school diploma. ¿Cuánta felicidad le causa tener este diploma en sus manos?
Me causa felicidad si él estuviera.
It was awarded posthumously in May. The 18-year-old student at Juarez Lincoln High School took his own life in November. His family says he felt worthless as an undocumented immigrant, unable to fulfill his dream as a civil engineer.
Yo pienso que cuando enterré a mi hijo en el día de mi cumpleaños, yo enterré a mi hijo y pienso que me enterré yo también.
Unable to recover from his death, Mendoza says she finds comfort and faith in President Barack Obama's new policy towards undocumented youth. It allows people in the same situation that Joaquin was in to stay in the country and apply for a work permit.
Yo pienso que estuvo muy bien y aunque tal vez lo haya hecho demasiado tarde, pero lo hizo.
With new hope on the horizon, she offers advice to the so-called dreamers, an estimated 800,000 of which stand to benefit nationwide.
Yo sé que si alguien quiere ser alguien, lo va a lograr. Y no se desesperen porque aunque dure años, como lo acabo de decir hace un momento, Dios paga el tiempo de espera.
Still in mourning, Santa Mendoza says she's also waiting, although her dream is to be reunited with Joaquin. In Mission, Rafael Carranza, Action 4 News. The Texas law banning abortion providers and their affiliates from getting taxpayer money passed in 2005, but it wasn't enforced until this year when the state attorney general's office ruled it would not conflict with federal law, but the federal government disagrees.
Women's health is not a political game.
Yulissa McCoy is a 23-year-old student at the University of Texas Pan American. She's one of 130,000 women enrolled through Medicaid in the state's women's health program.
My parents don't have health insurance, so I can't seek these resources through their health insurance program. They don't have one.
The program covers medical services like pap smears, cancer screenings, and birth control. Nearly 9,000 women from the Valley are enrolled, but now the services they depend on may be cut.
Because our law that prevents taxpayer money from going to abortion affiliates is in there, does not fit with President Obama's pro-abortion agenda, and that is why they're seeking to cut the program.
Catherine Frazier is a spokesperson for Governor Rick Perry. Under state law, Planned Parenthood and other groups affiliated to abortion providers will not be eligible to participate in the women's health program. The Obama administration announced last week it's cutting funding because the state is restricting women's access to health care in violation of Medicaid rules.
President Obama does not want to see Planned Parenthood cut out of this funding when Planned Parenthood represents less than 2% of the providers in the program.
She says even though the federal government will no longer provide funding, the program is important to Governor Perry. He announced the state will continue the program even if it means adding to the deficit.
It sounds like the governor forgets what he's done. In the past, he's cut out women's health program.
Patricio Gonzalez is the executive director of Planned Parenthood in Hidalgo County. He says last year the legislature voted to cut nearly 2/3 of the funding for women's health programs. He wonders where Perry will come up with the money.
It's physically irresponsible to reject the federal government's $39 million payoff of this program, especially when the state is facing a budget that's in the red.
And Governor Perry is going to continue working with lawmakers.
But Frazier says they will not violate laws to appease the Obama administration. With Planned Parenthood's participation on the line, Julissa wonders about her future and the future of thousands of other women who rely on them for this vital service. The program is fully funded until March 31st. At that point, the state hopes to find funding to step in, and any participants using Planned Parenthood will have to find another provider. In our Hidalgo County newsroom, Rafael Carranza, Action 4 News.
Yeah, baby. Get him, there you go.
You don't have to see a cockfight to know they're close to home. A YouTube search reveals videos like these, all from South Texas.
Cockfighting is a big problem for South Texas.
Thursday, masked men gunned down nearly a dozen people during a cockfight at this Hidalgo County home. 3 people were killed.
It's a pretty elaborate operation. It's probably not one of the biggest we have seen, but it ranks up there as being fairly elaborate.
Sheriff Lupe Trevino says the people living here had plenty of experience organizing cockfights. That night, sheriff's deputies seized about 80 roosters. Some of them ended up here.
Some of them are bleeding. They will have eyes popped out, broken limbs.
Brenda Torres says in her time at the Palm Valley Animal Shelter, she's seen her share of abused birds. On average, 4 to 6 major cockfighting busts every year. Brenda knows the reports of animal abuse they do see cannot compare to those that go unreported.
People need to be the voices for these animals that cannot help themselves.
Sheriff Trevino says speaking out could have saved lives in Thursday's shooting. Though neighbors were aware of the cockfights, no one reported it until it was too late. In McAllen, Rafael Carranza, Action 4 News.
Bien deshecha por la pérdida de mi niña.
El dolor que Gregoria Salinas siente no puede ser consolado.
¿Por qué mi niña? ¿Por qué?
Su niña, su bebé de tan solo 7 años de edad, falleció la tarde del miércoles. La pequeña Lupita, que tenía síndrome Down, murió ahogada en la alberca comunitaria de su casa en Santa María.
Yo me vine nomás, estaba echando ropa a lavar y le prendí la lavadora y ya me vine a buscarla porque siempre andaba nomás detrás de ella.
Fue en ese descuido que Lupita logró salir de la casa. Al darse cuenta, la familia entera salió a buscarla sin éxito alguno. Unos 20 minutos después, uno de los vecinos dio con el cuerpo de la pequeña flotando sobre el agua.
El portón que debía estar cerrado estaba abierto también. No estaba protegido. Yo digo que si hubiera estado protegido, mi hija no se me hubiera muerto. No se me hubiera ido.
Además de la reja que estaba abierta, el cerco también tenía un hoyo. Gregoria dice que nunca se imaginó que le causaría problemas, ya que siempre estaba al tanto de su niña.
Ay, ahí perdió la vida mi niña.
Es un dolor que consume a esta madre, la cual se pregunta el qué hubiera pasado si hubiera hecho algo diferente. Pero el hubiera no existe y ahora debe enfrentarse a la cruda realidad, una realidad sin su Lupita. En Santa María, Rafael Carranza, Noticias de la Frontera.